Okay, I'd again like to thank all of our speakers. We have about 20 minutes for question and answer / comment.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. My name is Kanan. I want to thank all comments. And one quick thing about the Zionist movement. The Zionist movement started in 1800s, so it's not new. So their project went or way before the Holocaust. And what went wrong with it, it just, the project failed. So the plan didn't go as planned. So the Palestinian state, so that created all that problem. The other comment is that this is a military-industrial complex project. It's not people against people. It's not Jews against Muslims. It's not Muslims against Jews. It's a military-industrial complex. And you just commented well when you explained all of that process. It's really about the military-industrial complex in this country. They needed a proxy state to keep this war going. The war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, yes, they are all connected. And just watch and see if anything started exposing Israel to the bone, something is going to happen in this country like 9/11. And this is not a conspiracy. But at some point, I remember that night, we were preparing to drop banners on freeways. And we were ready to do that. The public opinion was so high anti-Israel. Not the media. The media is still occupied by Israeli Zionists. Then next day, September 11th happened. Now, the Israelis have so much interest because we have this question always back home. We ask this question: who benefits from an act or an action? You ask that question, then you follow the lines, and then you'll find out who's really benefiting from it. I tell you something, 9/11, Arabs, Muslims didn't benefit from it. Not anybody in the Middle East benefited from it. You know what? Osama bin Laden is an unknown figure in the Middle East. Just suddenly he became like somebody. I leave it at that, and thank you very much.
If people are interested in finding out who profits, it's called whoprofits.org. And it's an Israeli website. They've done a lot of good research on who's profiting from the Israeli occupation.
And before the crowd starts thinning out, if everyone here can make a commitment to join Americans United for Palestinian Human Rights, that would be a tremendous thing. Together, there's an Arabic saying, one hand can't clap. Okay? Meaning we need each other in order to make a difference.
My name is Brian Barnett. I'm representing the Freedom Socialist Party. We are a feminist socialist party, and I noticed that people here on the panel do, despite the utopian tenor to it, that believe in a one-state solution is the only viable solution in the long run, and I believe it has to be a socialist, secular, democratic state in which everyone is equal, and they're not fighting over the crumbs that capitalists leave us. But what I think is important is that women being the most oppressed class in the world, basically, that what I'm asking is, do you think that there's militants in the Israeli women and the Palestinian women, and not just feminist women, but feminist men, enter the working class of the world to push for a feminist socialist revolution in Palestine and Israel and get the ball started?
I listened to, or I watched on TV, pro-Israeli demonstrations in which the demonstrations were mostly saying it's all Hamas's fault. I watched Palestinian protests, which basically say it's all Israel's fault, or it's the occupation. And I wonder, where is the voice of the two people together saying, we are both responsible here, let's work together. I know of like combatants for peace and bereaved family circles. I wonder if there's more, and if you can tell us about the influence of those organizations in both societies. Thank you.
Announcement. I'm with Students United for Palestinian Equal Rights here on campus, and I have a list of policymakers, the president's contact information, as well as our local representatives that I want you guys to contact. And I also know that handwritten letters are a lot more effective than form letters. So while I do have form letters here, I have a huge stack of blank paper and a bunch of pens, and my goal tonight is to get all of you sit down and write a paragraph. I have sample letters if you need them, and give them back to me, and I will go to the post office tomorrow and mail them for you. So while you're sitting here listening to these great panelists, write your policymakers and get involved with Super. Sign up on our email list, and thanks so much for coming.
With all due respect to the last gentleman who was asking about both sides taking responsibility, the problem with the concept is that it is exactly like asking a rape victim to step up and take responsibility for the crime committed against you. Okay? I understand completely what you're saying. It's just that it doesn't apply to the facts on the ground, which is you have this inequality between the fourth largest military power in the world, the most powerful, that is bombarding 1.5 million people for 23 days, and you want those people to take responsibility? I can understand saying that Hamas should not lob homemade rockets that don't seem to do much of anything. All you have to do is take a look at this document that is on the table over there that shows that if we were to go from December 27th to January 18th, we've had 0 Israelis killed, 0, and you have 412 Palestinians killed. Studies are now showing that, after they've been able to look at this, that 70% of those at least were civilians. Innocent men, women, and children. You cannot ask them to take responsibility for the horrific conditions that they are in. If you take a look prior to that, from December 27, 2008 until January 18, 2009, you have 9 Israelis killed, the vast majority of whom were military. And you have 1,314 Palestinians killed. So with all due respect, you're asking for the wrong thing in terms of asking both sides with this lack of parity to take responsibility. It is the occupier that is in power that can make a difference, can stop the occupation. I think you wanted to also...
Well, I agree with everything that you're saying, that there is no sense of parity, and a media outlet like National Public Radio that claims to be less biased on the issue by showing that there is parity. They will announce a Palestinian death and an Israeli death, where in fact there are 10 Palestinian deaths for every Israeli death, and so that type of coverage presents a false perspective on what's happening. So when you see an Israeli demonstration and a Palestinian demonstration, it's a very different situation. There is the oppressor, and there is the oppressed in this situation, and there is resistance to that oppression. And granted, some of the resistance to that oppression is targeting the wrong people. When they target civilians, they should not do that. But you have to face the fact that it is resistance to a 60-year-long occupation of their land. And there are places where Israelis and Palestinians come together. I just want to point that out. One of those places is in the village of Belaim and the village of Nelaim in the West Bank, where nonviolent protests are being held every single week and have been for years, where Israelis actually take the risk of going there and facing off with their own military, their own their peers, basically, because they're young people about the same age as the soldiers, and will engage in that nonviolent resistance, and that is happening. But it's not something where there are two equal sides.
It is very funny. You mentioned the combatant for peace.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you have an Israeli full equipped soldiers next to a Palestinians who throw rocks, and you call them combatant for peace. This is not fair, no comparison at all.
That's the name
But
of the organization.
I'm with the talk with talking and start promoting for a solution to the conflict in the Middle East. But you know, you have to restore justice. You have to start the reconciliation and healing process, and you know, based on equal economic justice for both. Then you know, then talk is possible.
Okay, so we'll go back to the center.
I would like to give a small update. Today morning, Israeli aircraft bombed the city of Khan Yunis, which is the southern part of Gaza, injured 9 people. Eight of them are children, elementary school children. In the meantime, the same time, Mr. Mitchell is the representative of Obama for the Middle East. He was demanding, the first demand he had is stop the illegal smuggling of weapons to Israel, and to Gaza, I'm sorry. I just thought about that this is an Israeli demand. This is exactly what the Israeli government demanded 2 weeks ago. My question is, how this Zionism or this AIPAC, or how they control the government, how they control the foreign affairs. Other question is, we hear a lot of confusion regarding the boycott Israel. And we receive so much of emails talking about Starbucks, McDonald's, so many businesses that sometimes it doesn't make sense to me. I would appreciate if there is a list that has confirmed and good source that we can go with that.
Yeah, there is on the table just on the end of the tables.
Okay, so I'm going to go over here.
So I think we need to answer the question about the feminists, socialist feminists in the Palestinian society and in Israeli society. The socialist feminists in Israel are not a large group. They exist. I have not seen any sort of activity on the Palestinian side with respect to socialist feminists. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, I just haven't seen it.
So I'd like to take 1 or 2 more and then come back to the ones that have been asked. So this side.
Hi, I'm Meredith. I'm with the International Socialist Organization, and I'm also a member of PDX Peace, local anti-war coalition. I wanted to make a couple points and ask a question. I think that this question of disproportionate violence has come up, and I'm kind of inspired by something that Martin Luther King said, and he's a big nonviolence activist, and his time is well known for it. And he said that he can't, in his Beyond Vietnam speech, he said you can't speak out against the violence of the oppressed in the ghettos before you speak out against the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, which is the United States government. And in this case, the United States government supporting Israel so much as the 4th largest army in the world. And then I think something that Waddah mentioned as well, what are the real reasons, how did Zionism get in control? What are the real reasons for imperialist occupation? And it's, on its fundamental level, it's greed. It's trying to take up the resources, it's trying to oppress people, and I think right now as our economy is pretty much tanking, people are starting to realize that there's an incredible amount of inequality that's built into our society in pretty much every facet, and especially economically. And I think we can actually, I lost my job in the last few months, and I think we can actually take out of this sadness and frustration that's going on all around us, we can actually find a glimmer of hope and that a lot more people are starting to ask those questions right now. A lot more people are actually going to come out in the streets and are actually more hopeful for the possibility of changing and making a better world. And I think in terms of this particular issue, there are sign-up sheets everywhere going around that people really need to take the first step, which I think is here, getting involved, getting educated, and then who knows what we'll really be able to achieve, you know, when we stand together. And I just have to again thank our panelists here. And I guess my question to you really is, in terms of the way forward and struggle, what can we do here on the PSU campus and in Portland? Do you think, you know, how can we collaborate in the future and on these campaigns to really see a difference and to get, most importantly, the next time we have a meeting like this, you know, 500 people in the room?
I'm going to take one more and then come back to the panelists.
Thanks. I just wanted to say, I think your name is Hala, the lawyer, the lady born from Nazareth. I know that you know, but I was very startled by when you said Israel is denying food to Gaza, because everybody knows the UN says we're not allowed to use food as a weapon, so why are they doing it? But
War
I mean,
crimes.
Too
War
difficult.
crimes.
Yeah,
War
I mean, I know
crimes.
it's too difficult for you to answer, but I just wanted to throw that out.
You bet. You know, the Israeli ministers, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
The Israeli ministers met last week. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss how to deal with the potential of the floodgates opening and the charges of war crimes against them. They then had another meeting and decided that not only do they, as military leaders and as government leaders, need protection for the war crimes, but that the soldier on the ground also needed protection. And so they made a commitment that they would provide the soldiers protections when, and the day will come, when the State of Israel and those used by the State of Israel are facing in The Hague and elsewhere charges of war crimes.
The Israeli ministers, just like Henry Kissinger in the U.S., Israeli ministers have been advised not to travel abroad for fear that they will be arrested for war crimes. They know what they've done.
Right. I wanted to address just real quick the question that you asked over there, because I think what I was trying to get at actually is that how does AIPAC control the U.S. government? I think it's actually, we have to turn that question around, because it's, why is the U.S. government so complicit in what Israel is doing? I mean, this occupation is a U.S.-Israeli occupation. The U.S. was completely involved in every step of this occupation. I think we have to be really clear about that. That Israel has been the United States watchdog in the Middle East, and if the United States, is going to control the resources, the oil in the Middle East, we need friendly states in the region to help us do that. And one state with equal rights for the Arab population, that threatens our ability to have a state in the region that's friendly, because the Palestinians are not, like the rest of the Arab population in the Middle East, are not going to want us to control the oil that they produce. They simply aren't. And so I think when you're talking about the influence that AIPAC has, I think the question is the question about U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, and why we're so entrenched in these wars and occupations over there.
Now, I want you to get a book called The Israel Lobby. The Israel Lobby is written by Walton Mearsheimer, and it'll explain how the Israel Lobby controls Congress. Just a couple of examples. Politicians who didn't support Israel 100% were taken down in their next election. So they are very powerful. And maybe they only donated a couple million or so this time around, but they have donated, I forget whether it's 40 million or 400 million. It's an astronomical sum. Extremely powerful. Natural resources. They found natural gas off the coast of Gaza. Several months ago, Israeli ministers decided they were going to go back and invade Gaza. There's a question about Israel entering into an agreement with a British company for Gaza's natural gas. Something to watch in the future.
One thing that the AIPAC, the American Israel Political Action Committee, does is they provide free trips to members of Congress, and 90% of the members of Congress that are currently seated have taken those free trips to Israel. And those would normally be considered graft or corruption, but they're exempted from the graft and corruption laws. So those trips to Israel are given, and they're propaganda tours in which Israeli government officials give their narrative, their false narrative of the history and of the conditions to the U.S. congressional representatives.
I just want to respond back to Meredith's questions about how students get involved with what happened in the Middle East. You know, we have a student group here on campus. SUPER is one of it, Student United for Palestinian Equal Rights, and also the International Socialist Organization on campus. They work and they are very active. We need volunteers. Please sign our sheet. They are on the table back there. We have next week also, in planning to do, or the following week, planning to plant flags, and flags on the name of the Palestinians who get killed and the Palestinians who get injured. We can plant them on the parkway outside the campus here. We need volunteers. We need help. Also, you can involve by campaigning on campus, lobbying the Palestinian cause, divestment as well, as mentioned, Jenka. See what PSU has business with Israel and try to divest.
Tell them about New Seasons.
Oh, well, there's one product that we've found just researching in New Seasons, the Masada Dead Sea Salts, which is a company that takes Dead Sea salts, which the Dead Sea is on the east side of the West Bank and is supposed to be under Palestinian control, but is under Israeli military control, and companies go and take dead salts from the Dead Sea and sell them as spa products. So that's a product that can be boycotted as a consumer.
Okay, due to our time restraints, I'm going to take just 2 more people, and I do apologize for all the folks that haven't, that I know wanted to speak. Please, stick around and talk to the panelists. Or check out the tables after the meeting's wrapped up, but we do have to start getting out of this room at some point.
This tearful matter, the attention that it needs. But I also want to say that I noticed that the young lady here made an announcement and a call to ask everybody to write letters and contact Mr. Merkley and Mr. Wyden, and nobody has taken her up on that. And the power of this group can be exponential if you take your actions a little bit further. And so I would urge you to take the time to write that letter. Go on the internet and look up the offices of Mr. Merkley and Mr. Wyden, and you can call those people, and you can leave messages, and you can tell them how you feel. And take time to sign up for these organizations that are carrying this cause a little bit further. I think it's great that we're here and spent a couple of hours on this, but again, make your efforts exponential, please, and sign up for these things, because there's power in the numbers when you unite as a group and you do that kind of thing. And please contact those politicians. Thank you. Thank you.
The representatives keep track of how many phone calls and whether they're pro or con. They keep track of how many letters. So please, at 2 in the morning, if you're an insomniac like myself, send those letters, send the emails, find the petitions. And when you give Jenka your email, if she will share it with me, we've been sending out a lot of notices because we're really getting sick and tired of just being reactionary. They bomb Gaza, we get out into the streets. They, bomb Lebanon in 2006, and Gaza, we get out into the streets. We're sick and tired of doing that. We have got to organize all together, all of us.
I'm just wondering, how many Arab countries have acknowledged Palestine as a sovereign entity? And if not, what can we do to provoke a conversation with Egypt, Libya, Morocco, Iraq, Oman, Yemen, to acknowledge Palestine as an independent country, since the U.S. automatically gave Sarajevo acknowledgement? We need to give Palestine the same acknowledgement therefore it might have some equal leverage at the global level.
Well, this is one thing I would say to you. It's our tax dollars that fund the occupation. So the focus should be on the U.S. doing the right thing. Okay? I don't have the time to write Arab leaders letters, okay, to tell them you need to recognize the sovereignty of Palestine. Because our resources are so limited, our focus has to be on those who fund the occupation, those who take in the occupation. Now, every Arab leader, even Egypt's leader, says he supports Palestinians. They all support Palestinians. My goodness. I mean, yeah, you can pay lip service. So they come back and say, we support Palestinian sovereignty. I'm telling you, it's just lip service. Let's focus our energies on things that are going to make a difference. Your tax dollars, our representatives, remember they're our representatives. Call them, write letters, join Americans United for Palestinian Human Rights, join If Americans Knew.
How?
IfAmericansKnew.org and AUPHR.org.
And the sheet she was talking about, the yellow sheet on that table, you can sign up.
Also, I have a radio program, because I don't like to sleep much, a radio program once a month with Will Seaman, who's this tremendous Jewish American activist. And our radio program is One Land, Many Voices every 4th Friday from 9 to 10 a.m.
I'm going to turn it over to quick, just closing comments from any other.
I just wanted to make 2 announcements. So February 16th, we haven't got the flyers printed yet, but we'll be showing Occupation 101. If you feel like you're missing some knowledge about this conflict, if you want to inform yourself, if you know someone who wants more information, Occupation 101 is a great film. We're going to be showing it at the Hollywood Theater on 42nd and Sandy, and that'll be on February 16th. That's a Monday at 7 p.m. And on February 25th, the 15th anniversary of the Hebron Massacre, which occurred in 1994, we'll be having a special on KBOO Community Radio 90.7 FM all day long, speaking about the Hebron Massacre and the settlers and that extremist settler movement that's never, ever really talked about in the U.S.
Will you send us reminders?
February 12th.
Yeah, if you sign up.
And if you haven't already, there was a clipboard going around, so if you're interested in anti-war organizing, I think what we're going to do is collect all those emails, and then the 4 of us will kind of compile something of this is how you get involved, and the many ways you can do that, and we can send those out to everyone who came tonight. And you know, I want to say, you know, there's a number of ways to get involved. I think we need to organize an anti-war movement in this country that takes on the issues of Palestine, Iraq, and Afghanistan that can challenge the American empire along with the populations in the Middle East who are challenging it every day. And I think the most important thing is for people to get involved with one of these organizations. You know, get involved with the movement, and also I would suggest doing some reading. You don't have to read to act, but it usually makes you a more informed activist. You know, and I think there's a lot of disinformation out there about the Palestinian issue, thanks to the mainstream press and the influence of Israel and the U.S. government. And so I really want to encourage people, check out Struggle for Palestine in the back. It's probably the best, I think, that I've read introduction to the situation in Palestine, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, I would like to say thank you, everybody, for coming here today. I saw a big crowd and I'm very impressed. You know, please don't sleep on it and keep going, keep pushing it. By letters, signing, call your senators, you know, taking actions. That's how we do a change. That's what Obama says. Change is coming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.